Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. I've been in and out of prisons and jails ever since I was 17. I thought I had seen it all: Aryan Brotherhood members stabbing guards, gang wars, escapes, and torture. I witnessed things that still haunt my nightmares to this day. McDonald, 40222, a guard barked. I jumped up as the thin mattress beneath me released a stale, musty breath of air. Through the bars, I saw the correctional officer, Shay. Officer Shay was morbidly obese, known for being loud and lazy. I once saw a Bloods member punch him square in the nose, a memory that still brought a grim smile to my face. Shay had crumpled to the floor like wet paper, screaming as backup officers tackled the inmate. "Yeah?" I asked. Shay handed me a sheet of paper and eyed me with his dull gray eyes. "Congratulations, you're being transferred. Pack your stuff. This is your last day at Springfield Correctional Center." You'd think I'd be happy about the transfer. Springfield Correctional was a dump. The food was cold and barely edible. The air reeked of bleach and chemicals, and the nights were so freezing that my flimsy sheet did nothing to stop me from waking up shivering. The building was almost a century old. The fact it hadn't collapsed was a miracle. But honestly, I wasn't thrilled. I had made friends here, and I knew the system. I didn't have to worry about getting jumped or stabbed in the showers. As the saying goes, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. The next evening, I was let out of my cell with all my worldly possessions in a clear trash bag that still had room to spare. Inside were prison clothes, toothpaste, a toothbrush, deodorant, a Bible, sandals, and a radio. The unbearable lightness of my existence felt painfully reflected in that bag as it swung against my leg with every step. "Good luck, friend," called Alvin, an unhinged acquaintance of mine, as I walked down the cold concrete hallway. "Take care, man. Maybe we'll meet on the outside," I said, waving. I knew we never would. I hadn't even seen my family in over 5 years. No visits, no letters, no money in my commissary, no books sent my way. We're all born alone, and we all die alone, I thought as Officer Shay shuffled beside me, breathing as if he'd just run a marathon. His red, blotchy nose betrayed years of hard drinking, and his little piggy eyes squinted under the fluorescent lights. There was a glimmer of sharpness behind his otherwise dull expression. "Well, amigo," Shay said in his slow, deliberate drawl, "looks like I'm assigned to ride along with you. You excited?" I gave him a faint smile. "There are worse people here than you, Shay. Far worse." I boarded the prison bus in my bright orange jumpsuit. To my surprise, the back was nearly empty except for one other prisoner. Shay sat between us, monitoring. Both of us were handcuffed, ankle-cuffed, and connected by a chain. I glanced at the other prisoner, a black man with a shaved head, eyebrows included. The only hairs on his face were his eyelashes, which he must not have figured out how to shave yet. "Sup," he said. I nodded. "Sup." We sat in awkward silence as Shay collapsed onto the bench with a thud. The seat groaned like an old man confused by life. "So, what do you know about this new place?" I asked. Shay took a swig from a Coke bottle, exhaled, and shrugged. "Not much, it's brand new. They just asked us to send some guys who meet certain criteria." "What criteria?" the other prisoner asked. Shay gave him a serious look. "Come on, Timmy. You know what I mean. Hardened criminals, long records, guys who tour prisons like tourists visit French beaches." I scoffed. "There are worse guys in prison than me." "Yeah," Shay said, nodding. "They also requested no murderers or gang members. Too much trouble." I didn't know why, but maybe it was some new government program. Apparently they called it an experimental prison. "What about me?" Timmy asked. Shay seemed to know what he meant. "You're not a murderer, Timmy," he said, his lips twitching with the faintest hint of a smile. "Well, there was that time my girlfriend got me to drop some acid with her," Timmy said, his eyes lighting up as if he were staring at some angelic memory in the distance. She went and killed her parents, then we hit the road. You weren't convicted of any accessory charges, so it doesn't count, Shay retorted. Oh, it counts, Timmy drawled in his slow, deliberate way. It all counts. Everything in life counts. If I've learned anything in my 36 years, it's that you can never escape what you've done, good or bad. I stared out the van's small, shatterproof window. It barely gave a view of the outside world, just glimpses of the road behind us. Rolling hills and dark forests stretched endlessly to the horizon. We drove for hours, passing the time by talking about sports, politics, and the recent wave of fatal stabbings at Springfield Correctional. Eventually, the van came to a stop. I peered out the window, seeing only more trees and no sign of life. This place is a ghost town, I muttered. Dead as Frank Sinatra, Shay replied, wheezing out a laugh at his own joke. This area used to thrive on coal mining, but when the mines dried up and people lost their jobs, they all left. My granddad was a coal miner. Good place for a prison, Timmy said. No one around to complain. Before Shay could respond, a loud clanging alarm sounded up ahead. The van rumbled forward as a massive gate creaked open. Soon, we were inside. Guard towers and razor wire flashed past the window before we pulled into a dark garage. The overhead door rolled shut behind us, plunging everything into shadow. Shay jumped up. "Let's get you boys inside so I can take off your handcuffs," he said, motioning for us to follow. He grabbed a flashlight from his belt, its dim beam casting wild shadows that darted like grasping tentacles. As we walked through the garage, I caught glimpses of strange objects in the darkness, things that looked disturbingly medieval. "What is this place?" I whispered, my voice echoing off the cold concrete walls. "Those look like torture devices on that table. Is that a pair of thumbscrews? And..." I pointed at a pear-shaped object with wickedly sharp blades. "That's a pair of anguish." The device sat on a dusty shelf, its ornate handle connected to springs. It could be forced into any orifice, and when the springs engaged, the blades would expand, tearing flesh and enlarging the opening into a gaping, bloody wound. "How do you know so much about this stuff?" Shay asked, giving me a strange look. His piggy eyes narrowed as he fumbled with the flashlight, searching for a way out of the garage. "I've read a few books," I said, glancing back at the van. The driver sat there motionless, as lifeless as a mannequin. "I see a red light," Timmy interrupted, pointing across the room. Shay directed his flashlight to where Timmy was gesturing. An old black door stood in the shadows. The wood was cracked and splintered, and engraved in silver across its surface were the words, "Entrance to North Frost Penitent." "Hello?" Shay called as we moved toward the door. The steel chains on our cuffs clinked with every step, creating a rhythmic echo. Shay reached for the antique crystal doorknob. Timmy and I stood next to a massive, dust-covered brazen bull, its bronze mouth frozen in a silent roar. When Shay finally pulled the door open, crimson light flooded the garage. A tinted glass wall stretched across the room beyond. Beside it, a speaker button glowed faintly. I turned to my right and saw a massive sign sprawled across the wall. The bold letters read, "Rules for Unpersonal Conduct at North Frost. The Cosos without faces don't work here, and we don't know who they are. If you see one, press any of the buttons labeled Emergency Dispatch scattered throughout the complex. When the red emergency lights turn on, hide until they shut off. Do not enter the medical ward for any reason. The warden roams the prison every night at 3:33 a.m. searching for human meat. Don't let him catch you." "What is this, a goddamn joke?" Timmy asked, his dark face contorting into a scowl. Well..." Shay rubbed the back of his neck, looking like an overgrown, sheepish little boy. "I've never been here before, but yeah, this is unusual, I'll admit." A buzzing sound echoed from the back of the room as a garish intercom clicked on. "Please remove their chains and direct them through the door on the left. Your transfer will then be complete," a robotic female voice said, calm and cold, like a chilled glass of lemonade on a hot summer day. Shay sighed in visible relief. Good, he grunted. This place gives me the creeps. Bro, you can't leave us here, Timmy protested, panic creeping into his voice. What is this place? Where is everyone? And why the hell is there a room full of bloody ancient torture devices next to the garage? Shay raised his hands, palms outward. I'm sorry, son. I have orders. I'm just the messenger. I was told to transfer you, and I've done my job. He fumbled with his keyring, unlocking the handcuffs and ankle chains. I stretched, rubbing my sore wrists, relieved to be free of those suffocating restraints. Thanks for everything, then, I muttered, grabbing my trash bag of meager possessions and heading for the door on the left. Timmy hesitated, but followed. A sign on the door read, "To General Population." When it slammed shut behind us, we found ourselves in a hallway bathed in the eerie glow of red emergency lights. A shiver ran down my spine as I remembered the absurd rules posted outside. What had it said about the red lights? My mind raced, and the answer clicked. Hide. A blood-curdling scream shattered the silence, filled with agony and terror. The hallway split into two directions ahead, left and right. We couldn't see anyone. Dude, screw this, Timmy said, turning and bolting back toward the door we'd just come through. He yanked on the handle, but it was locked tight. The scream came again, louder and closer this time before cutting off abruptly. A wet, choking gurgle followed, like someone struggling to breathe through a slashed throat. Then, deathly silence. The concrete floor had arrows painted on it, pointing forward. There were no doors nearby, nowhere to hide. Reluctantly, we moved ahead. At the intersection, we found the body. A man in a brown khaki uniform lay crumpled on the floor, his glassy, sightless eyes fixed on the ceiling. Gouge marks tore deeply into his back, chest, and arms, and his throat had been slashed or bitten open. Blood pooled around him, spreading like a dark halo. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement, a blur of shadow at the far end of the right hallway. I whispered to Timmy, pointing. Without a word, we turned left and moved as quickly as we dared. My heart pounded in my chest, every step feeling like a gamble. I imagined we were soldiers creeping through no man's land, waiting for the inevitable attack. The left hallway finally offered some doors. I sprinted to the first one, my chains clinking faintly as I moved. My heart sank as I read the sign, medical ward. Oh no, I whispered, moving on to the second door. Behind me, I heard faint, deliberate footsteps. I turned, my blood running cold. There it was. A creature stepped into the red glow of the emergency lights, its monstrous form making my stomach churn. Its black, glossy skin gleamed like a centipede's carapace, and its general shape reminded me of a hairless, nightmarish werewolf. It towered over us, its bone-white eyes like cataracts devoid of humanity. Its claws glinted, long and sharp as daggers. Its face, reptilian and alien, featured two slits for nostrils and a jaw that unhinged grotesquely, dropping far lower than it should have. Rows of jagged, blood-stained fangs gleamed in its mouth. It let out a low, gurgling growl, the sound reverberating from deep within its chest. A rush of adrenaline and sheer mortal terror took over as I shoved through the second door without reading the sign. Timmy was right behind me, but his scream echoed as he crashed into me. We tumbled into what appeared to be a prison dormitory, and we weren't alone. As I hit the ground, I caught a glimpse of a pale, terrified face peering out from behind a bunk bed. The man hiding there saw the creature behind us and bolted, screaming. The abomination growled, its sinewy legs coiling before launching into two powerful bounds. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the dormitory, seizing the man by his neck. "Let's go! Let's go! No time!" I urged Timmy, but my voice was cut off by the sickening snap of the man's neck. I looked back, horrified. The creature had twisted his head entirely around, and as the lifeless body sagged in its claws, it raised it to its massive mouth. With a single feral bite, the creature severed the head, blood spraying the walls like macabre confetti. "Get me out of here, man, please," Timmy whispered, his voice faint and trembling. Blood streamed from deep claw marks gouged into his back. I grabbed him and hauled him upright. As we stumbled back into the hallway, I caught sight of yet another creature barreling down the corridor, chasing a man in an orange prison jumpsuit. With no other option, I yanked Timmy toward the door labeled medical ward. It groaned as the rusted hinges creaked open. "We can hide in here, maybe patch you up," I whispered, pulling him into the dimly lit room. We hurried down a short hallway which led to a room filled with empty hospital beds. Against the back wall, a glass cabinet displayed bandages, rubbing alcohol, and other first aid supplies. I ran to the cabinet, yanking it open. Timmy limped after me, groaning. "God damn. Those claws cut all the way to the bone." "It's going to be okay," I said, hastily pulling out antiseptic and gauze. "It could have been a lot worse." The universe, of course, immediately proved me right. A faint giggle echoed through the room. Timmy and I froze. 2 rotted hands slid out from under one of the beds, dragging a mutilated little girl behind them. Her grotesque form emerged into the light, her pale skin stitched together with thick black thread, forming jagged, uneven lines across her face and limbs. Clotted blood seeped from the stitches, and her hospital gown was smeared with gore. Her empty eye sockets stared back at me, twin voids of infinite darkness. Her faint giggle grew louder, bubbling into a high-pitched, hysterical cackle. Then she lunged. A scalpel gleamed in her tiny hand as she charged. "No!" I screamed, raising my arms to protect myself. The blade slashed across my palm, cutting deep. A sharp, burning pain raced up my arm. I gritted my teeth, suppressing the urge to cry out. At that moment, the red emergency lights flickered off. Bright fluorescent bulbs sputtered to life, strobing in rapid succession, creating a nightmarish effect. Timmy tackled the undead girl, sending her sprawling. But I saw more hands clawing out from beneath the beds. Necrotic skeletal fingers dragged more mutilated children into the room. Their small hands clutched rusted scalpels, syringes, and other surgical tools. "Time to go, now!" I shouted, grabbing Timmy and pulling him up. We stumbled forward, but they were everywhere. One of the children lunged, burying a knife deep into my thigh. I collapsed, my vision swimming with pain. Looking down, I saw the grinning face of a little boy staring up at me, his empty sockets and skeletal smile mocking me. A desperate prayer escaped my lips as I felt the children close in. "God, forgive me for my mistakes. I'm coming to meet you now." But then, a deafening gunshot split the air. The head of the nearest girl exploded in a gruesome shower of bone shards and writhing maggots. I looked up to see Shay standing at the door, his pistol raised. "Come on," he shouted, his face pale but determined. "Move it, you idiots. Now." Timmy and I didn't hesitate. As Shay fired round after round, blowing apart the undead abominations, we limped and scrambled toward him, my heart pounding with renewed hope and fear of what lay ahead. My legs screamed with pain with every step, but we stumbled out of the medical ward, battered, bruised, but still alive. "Why'd you come back, Shay?" I asked through labored breaths. Shay shot me a frantic look. When I got back to the car, the driver was dead, throat ripped out or something. I don't know. I grabbed his keys and came back for you two. I don't know where the hell we are, but I'm getting you out of here. I stared at him in disbelief. Never in a million years had I thought Shay would risk his life for some scumbag inmates. "So, what's the plan?" Timmy asked, sweat pouring down his face. His wild, pain-stricken eyes darted around the corridor. "How are we getting out of here without dying?" Shay shrugged. "The door locked behind us when we came in," I said. "Unless we can break it down or find another way back to the car." My eyes landed on a set of buttons labeled Emergency Dispatch under a glowing red sign. "Maybe we can get help somehow," I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. Before I could act, a voice rang out. "Halt!" I spun around. A man in a black correctional officer's uniform was charging toward us, his hand on the radio clipped to his belt. Something about him felt off. As he got closer, the reason became horrifyingly clear. He had no face. His head was smooth, featureless, an uncanny expanse of white skin. "You must report to the medical ward," he said, though the sound didn't come from his head. It resonated from somewhere inside his body, echoing unnaturally. "We do not allow injured people in the hallways." Shay forced a grin, trying to bluff. "See, buddy? I work for the doc, too." He pointed to the fake ID clipped to his shirt. The faceless officer raised his radio. "We have resistance near Dormitory 1, he said, his monotone voice chillingly calm. Shay moved fast. He lunged forward, knocking the radio from the man's hand. The officer reacted instantly, drawing a pistol and firing. Shay's chest exploded in a spray of blood as he stumbled back. "No! Damn it!" Timmy screamed, running forward with a flash of silver in his hand, a scalpel he must have taken from the medical ward. The faceless officer turned, aiming the gun at Timmy, but he wasn't quick enough. Timmy slammed into him, driving the scalpel deep into the featureless neck. They fell to the ground together, Timmy on top, forcing the blade deeper. The officer's black, soot-colored blood spurted from the wound. His death rattles echoed from every direction as his body twitched violently. The pistol went off once more, the bullet ricocheting harmlessly into the ceiling. "Get the guns," I shouted. "They're both dead. We need the guns." Timmy nodded, panting, as we stripped the officer and Shay of their weapons and spare magazines. My hands were shaking, but I managed to press the button labeled Emergency Dispatch. Far down the hallway, more faceless men appeared, their pale forms marching steadily toward us. "Run!" I yelled, dragging Timmy along. We fled, limping through the labyrinth of the prison. The faceless officers were relentless, patrolling the halls and communicating in that eerie, echoing language. Occasionally, we saw men in SWAT gear mowing them down with automatic rifles. I could only guess that this was the emergency response. We avoided them too. We passed cells with mummified corpses hanging from the ceilings. Dormitories reeked of decay, littered with the rotting remains of the werewolf creature's victims. Once in a while, I spotted pale, frightened faces peeking out from hiding places, but I didn't stop. We finally stumbled into a sprawling gymnasium, collapsing onto the floor to catch our breath. The respite didn't last. A guttural roar echoed down the hallway, a mix of inhuman snarls and guttural tongues. Timmy and I scrambled to our feet as a decapitated body was hurled into the gym, hitting the concrete wall with a wet, sickening thud. Then it came. The warden. Standing 10 feet tall, it wore a black correctional officer's uniform and a leather visor cap. Its face was a ghastly, fleshless skull, covered in thick, bony plates. Reptilian eyes with slitted pupils glared at us as a forked tongue flickered from its gaping maw. Its fingers were long, jagged blades of bone, dripping with dark, congealed blood. "Shoot it!" I screamed, raising my pistol and firing. My first shot blew the visor cap clean off, revealing the grotesque, hairless skull underneath. The bullet gouged into the bone but didn't stop it. The warden charged, its massive frame closing the distance in seconds. Timmy and I fired wildly, our bullets tearing into its head and torso. One of its eyes exploded in a spray of gore, but it didn't slow down. The warden slammed into Timmy with the force of a freight train, sending him flying across the gym. He hit the wall with a sickening crunch, his body crumpling to the floor. I fumbled to reload as the warden turned its remaining eye toward me, my hands trembling. I raised the gun and fired, aiming for the damaged eye. The shot hit home. The creature stumbled, letting out a deafening screech. I ran forward, pressing the barrel of my gun against its ruined eye socket, and emptied the clip. At last, it fell. I turned to Timmy. His body was broken, his legs twisted at unnatural angles, his chest heaving with ragged, shallow breaths. Blood bubbled from his lips as he tried to speak. "I'm sorry, Timmy," I whispered, kneeling beside him. His head gave the faintest nod before he exhaled one final, shuddering breath. Through tears, I searched the warden's body and found a ring of keys. My heart leaped as I sprinted to a locked door, fumbling with the keys until one finally worked. I made it to the van, shoving the dead driver's body aside and starting the engine. The vehicle roared to life and I smashed through the garage door, barreling through the gate. The van barely made it a few miles before the engine gave out, but I didn't care. I was far enough away. I don't know what kind of prison that was, but whatever it was, I hope I never see that hellscape again.